finish this life loving you and trusting in your promises. We thank you for the life and grace you gave him and the peace in which he now rests. Have compassion on our grief, Lord, and fill our hearts with thanksgiving to you. Our children are made of your image. Help us follow you in mind, body, and spirit. Glorify your name. From you comes every good and perfect gift, including the gift of eternal life. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Sorry.
So, I'm thinking back to my relationship with Rick and Ricky. There was a time shortly after the event that Ricky, or Big Rick, needed a little solitude. We fully understood that. And after a period of time, some of the old Rick was coming back with a sense of humor. And our buddies, my cousin Kenny is here, my friend Jim, John, and others were starting to appreciate the fact that the old comedy was coming back. Rick is a master of presenting absurd ideas that we all then pick up on and carry forward. So I really missed the comedy. What I didn't miss during that time was the incessant request for computer support. It was a bit of a reprieve from the ongoing requests. You see, Rick has a little challenge when it comes to computers. Oh, like finding the on switch and things of that nature. Over the years, several of us, some of who are in this room, John in the back, my buddy Jim, Ron Hoffman, and myself, became essentially the 24/7 Microsoft support line for Rick. We would ask a lot of questions. I can't find the desktop. How do I attach a document to, the really heavy stuff that takes years and years to understand. And this went on for some time, and we would all invent ways to avoid the call. We would leave the country. I personally would develop many dialects to confuse Rick. I would, hello, yes, no, guy is not here. No, he's not here. He's in Nairobi, and he's gone very long time. But I do have Ron Hoffman's number if you have a pencil. Ron actually is out of the country today. He claims he's on spring break with his grown girls and his wife, and I'm sure that's true, partially. But here we sit. So then it dawned on me that the calls started to diminish, and I was wondering who was picking up the slack as all the time went on. And then it sort of occurred to me that it was Ricky. The Big Rick was turning to his son for computer support. And I could only imagine how that went, because at one point, Ricky moved in with his pops, and it's one thing when Ricky was a phone call away, it's quite another when he's in a room away, and I could only imagine the amount of incessant questions that he would pose upon Ricky for help. Ricky, get over here, I need some help. And I'm sure that went on quite frequently, really important things like how do you turn on the Wi-Fi, and I imagine Ricky very patiently walking into where the computer was and saying things like, no, Dad, that's not the enter key, that's the backspace, or just copy and paste, no, here, let me just take over. And I can imagine that his patience was pushed to the human limit. And so now when we say Ricky's at peace, I think perhaps there's multiple reasons to explain that peace that we would all welcome at some point. When I split up with my daughters, That's a whole different story. When I split up with my wife, you'll need a program to cover. But the one that gave me the daughter turned out Rick was looking for an apartment, and so we decided to move in together. And for about 5 or 6 years, we lived in this apartment on Moore Park in Toluca Lake, which is where we met Bev. Her then husband Dennis, our friend Patty, and it was kind of a great life together. And so it became my extended family. And so when Ricky was very young, he and Rick and my daughter Kristen and I would do fun stuff, pizza parties. We would head to the trains at Griffith Park. We'd go to Snow, and we would just sort of hang together. And Big Rick had this thing about Westerns, that if there was something going to be on AMC or something, we just had to watch this Western. It could have been The Wild Bunch, it could have been The Searchers, it was just whatever it might be, we had to go check it out. And so we'd run up to the loft, we had a loft, and Big Rick would put it on, and we'd start watching the movie, and 15 minutes later I'd look over, and of course Rick is sound asleep, totally zoned out, and I'm thinking, do I need to watch this? Is there a book report or something? Because I don't know why. Meanwhile, little Ricky is running up and down the stairs with this bundle of energy, always moving, always thinking, always talking, always questioning, and he proclaimed to me at the ripe old age of, 9 or 10, that he was going to be a fireman. He said, I'm going to be a fireman. You know, when young boys say they're going to be something, an astronaut, a cowboy, a baseball player, or even a policeman or a fireman, you get patted on the head and they say, good for you. That wasn't the case with Ricky. There's an author by the name of Stephen Covey who wrote a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in it he says, begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. Ricky knew what the end state was, what he wanted to be, and so he began. And I talk about him in my leadership courses because to know what you want and to pursue it with that sort of resilience, to fly across the country, join the Coast Guard, become an EMT, put in your dues, and eventually wind up where you wanted to be on those fire trucks that he saw in Burbank as a child and said, I want to do that, is so commendable. And those jobs were scarce. The waiting lists were long. And he got in and he had a chance to live his dream. And not only that, but he rushed into burning houses and he saved lives and he came across accidents on the highway that you and I can't even fathom, and did what he had to do to save lives. So when we talk about a celebration of life, there's a particular genuine quality to that comment when we talk about Rick Eaggleston. And I miss those days when he was a kid. But boy, for a kid to have realized those dreams is really commendable. So, well done, my friend. Well done. When Rick was needing his time of solitude, which we all respected, we all had to process that information our own way. And so with my musical background that I share with my buddy Dennis here in the room, I wrote a song. No, I'm not going to perform the song, but I'd like to conclude my comments with just the final verse. So it says, they say all things must pass in time, but if this road is too hard to climb, then maybe the best you can do is feel the life that lives on in you and take each day one step at a time, and that'll be fine. And there you go. I think that's probably what we can all do, is to take that part of Rick that lives on with us. That concludes my comments, but I do have a letter from Rick to his son I'd like to read. If I can. Dear Rick, I loved you from the moment you came into this world. They say a father and son have a special bond. I know we had that. Here are the reasons I loved you so much. Because you loved Seinfeld and could recite all the lines from the best episodes, along with how you could come up with some of the best one-liners I've ever heard. How you used to scold me for affectionately patting little kids on the head. You'd say, "Pop, they're going to think you're a pedophile." I'm still doing it. Sorry, son. I love you for how much you loved your girls, Sophie and Sienna. How you couldn't wait to drive up to Oregon and see them. Although a long drive, we always made the best of it by singing along to Daryl Hall and John Oates and listening to Adam Carolla. For finding Caitlin the love of your life, watching you both together, making each other laugh, always taking care of whatever she needed. I've never seen a couple that was more perfect for each other. I loved your heart. You were always willing to help anyone who needed it without any reward or paycheck. Most of all, the way you loved the Dodgers. Although they disappointed you year after year, next year for sure you always had. And finally, most of all, I loved your courage. As a Los Angeles City fireman, paramedic, you delivered babies, you saved lives, you ran into danger. May God bless you and all the first responders. I will love you forever, dear son. I can't wait to be with you again, where we'll soar across the heavens laughing and singing with God's angels. Oh, that was very nice. I'm happy to open the floor to anyone who would like to say something at this point. You're welcome to do so. I do have other comments and letters to read later. Okay, thank you.
My readers. Hello, I'm Eddie Different, friend of Ricky's. I'm pretty sure Ricky was my first friend ever. We met at Grandview Preschool, which is not far from here. And we realized we lived across the street from each other pretty quickly after that. My mom remembers she and I were on a walk near our house when I was complaining that there were no local kids to play with. Then we saw Ricky and his mom walking, and I said, "Look, there's a kid." And that was that. We very quickly became good buddies. We hung out all the time, riding our 1980s plastic big wheels. I had an Incredible Hulk model, and Ricky had a cooler Knight Rider model. Those turned into bicycles, skateboards, and eventually we were driving cars. Two of our TV shows back then were Emergency and Chips, which no doubt directed us to our future careers in firefighting and law enforcement. Ricky and I had countless slumber parties full of 1980s sitcom TV, board games with macaroni and cheese, popcorn, late night Nintendo marathon sessions. We were very lucky to have such loving families. With us both having older sisters, we naturally became more like brothers. When we were still very young, I remember Ricky and his family were moving. Luckily for me, they literally moved to the house next door and even one house closer to me. think our parents got very used to us, or very used to hearing us say, "Can Ricky join us?" or "Can Eddie come too?" I remember when Ricky's older sister Tracy was a young teenager and their house telephone would ring all the time for her. Ricky would sometimes answer the phone during the first ring and say, "Tracy's answering service, how may I be of service?" We thought that was hilarious. Tracy did not. Ricky taught me a lot, especially about sports. I was pretty much raised by my two sisters and my mom. So to date, most of my limited sports knowledge came directly from Ricky. I can literally remember him teaching me how to play football in his front yard, using the hedges as touchdown places or end zones, as I learned. Ricky's loving parents, Kathy and Rick Sr., both helped raise me too. Sort of as a fringe benefit of, or maybe by osmosis, of hanging out with Ricky so often. Their collective values emphasizing compassion, love, hospitality, humor, and just how to be a good human certainly directly resulted in Ricky possessing all of those characteristics and much more. When Ricky's dad, Rick, took us to play baseball at the local ball field, which was common, he would have us pick up some trash when we were done in order to leave the park cleaner than we found it. And that was a great lesson in ecology and just keeping our city clean, and it became our norm. Nowadays, my kids are forced to do the same. Thanks, Rick. I still frequently quote a framed picture that hung in Kathy's house for many years, and often to myself. And it simply read, "Try a little kindness." That quote can never be wrong, and it is very Kathy, and it is very Ricky. It was a great treat to go to the video store and rent movies like Ghostbusters and Die Hard, and then go to Rick's dad's house and watch them with his cool roommate Guy up in that loft. Ricky and I taught ourselves to play instruments at a young age. He started on the bass guitar while I played some drums. For a while we had our own heavy metal bands, and we'd hold practice in our living rooms. I still feel bad for some of those neighbors on 6th and Roselli, who had to put up with that noise. And although we were always, at different grades, our friends in middle school and high school all intermingled well. And I think we both always had the opinion of kind of the more the merrier. Rick was very inclusive and compassionate. Yeah, he's always very inclusive, compassionate, forgiving, caring, funny, and a very loyal friend. I will miss his sharp, keen sense of humor, which is second to none. He's also very handy, extremely handy with tools and projects, able to build and fix most anything. Years later, we were in each other's weddings, and eventually we found ourselves on the same street again. This time, Ricky was assigned to LA City Fire Station 72, and I was assigned to CHP's West Valley office, both on DeSoto Avenue in the West Hills. This was around the time we both had kids. Ricky was so proud of his family, especially his daughters, Sophie and Sienna. With busy lives, sometimes Ricky and I wouldn't see each other for long periods of time, weeks, months, or even up to a year here and there, like when he joined the Coast Guard in Alaska. But every time we'd see each other, we picked up right where we left off, as we caught up on life stories, with a lot of laughs and sharing new music. Although I'm missing Ricky dearly, I'm so very grateful for the many great memories and experiences we shared in our over 40-plus year friendship. I think it's safe to say we're all a bit better of a human for having the privilege of knowing Rick Eaggleston. And may God welcome Ricky home. Rest easy, my brother.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I have a letter I'll read, so I can find it. Yeah. dear letter. I should probably not reread that one. Yeah, it's going to be long. Hold on, let me see if I can find the one I'm supposed to read. Was there one in there? Well, that's the letter in the opening.
He helped the old guy.
I found it.
Which one? No, wait a minute.
I'm the old guy. Okay.
That Bobby, yeah, his
Yeah.
Coast Guard commander, Captain.
Okay.
Let me have this.
All right, you got it? Throw the cover.
This is, you've already done.
Yes, I have. Thank you for choreographing.
Yeah, we're gonna have to deduct this from your pay.
Okay. This is a letter to Rick's family and friends from Bobby Gay. It says, hello, my name is Bobby Gay. Although I'm not able to attend today, I'm honored to be able to share some thoughts as we celebrate Rick's life. I'm still an active duty Coast Guard, and I met Rick in 2001 on the Coast Guard cutter Maple in Sitka, Alaska. We instantly became friends. He was always smiling, making those around him laugh. He had a remarkable way of making a stressful situation seem funny. I can still hear his laugh and appreciate his logical approach to our dilemmas. As we know, Rick had a love for baseball that forged our bond together. He's a Dodger fan, I'm a Cardinals fan. Back in 2002, as he was planning to get out of the Coast Guard and move back to LA to pursue his dream of becoming a fireman, I was continuing my Coast Guard career. We wanted to find a way to stay connected. So we chased the idea that we'd meet up in a different city each year to watch an MLB game. As we were early in our professional careers, new to our baseball statement endeavor, we are also on a low budget. We typically tried to pick baseball cities close to where one of us lived, for example in California or near where I was currently stationed in the Coast Guard, to save money. The cities we visited, where I was currently stationed in the Coast Guard, were St. Louis Cardinals, LA Dodgers, back to St. Louis for the new stadium, LA Angels, New York Yankees and Mets. I was stationed in New York then. San Diego Padres, Texas Rangers, Arizona Diamondbacks, Atlanta Braves, playoff game against the Dodgers, Tampa Bay Rays, I was stationed in Tampa then, Colorado Rockies against the Dodgers, Detroit Tigers, Washington Nationals, Oakland A's, and lastly the Baltimore Orioles. A special thank you to Tracy and Scott, as Rick and I enjoyed a few games, thanks to their generosity. Like a kid, Rick was always genuinely excited before and during each game. He'd always buy the home team's baseball hat. I plan to complete our baseball journey and will carry a picture of Rick with me so that he'll be there too. In addition, Rick was very generous and helpful. After my Alaska Coast Guard tour, my wife Amy and I were stationed in St. Louis, Missouri on the Mississippi River, where we bought our first house in 2003. Hence our first game was the St. Louis Cardinals game. While staying at our house, Rick helped me with several electrical issues. He was an electrician in the Coast Guard. He hand drew me a basic electrical diagram, which I still have today in my toolbox. Later, when I was stationed in Yorktown, Virginia, Rick came to visit for a baseball game at the Washington Nationals. I was at work, so Amy picked him up from the airport. She was telling him about some bug problems we were having. So on the way home, he insisted to go to Home Depot, get the supplies they needed. When they got home, Rick immediately went to work. Later in that visit, he literally climbed up a tree with my chainsaw to cut down limbs that were causing problems to the house. We were always amazed at his selfless contributions to help Amy and I out. The last text message I received from Rick was July 4, 2022. In it, it read, "Hey Bobby, happy 4th of July. I replied, you too. Cherish the moments with your friends and family. You never know when it may be the last time." Today I imagine Rick up in heaven, having the fields of dreams, playing baseball every day. I imagine him being the first person to greet new arrivals with his infectious smile. and that welcoming character. Rick, you are missed, and know that you made positive changes here on earth. And although I pray it's many years from now, save me a seat on the bench as I look forward to hearing you laugh and playing catch in a field of glory. With love, Bobby Gay, Nashville, Tennessee, April 2023. Ooh, okay. Would anybody else like to share for a few words before we show Ricky's video? Okay.
With a rain of a smile on my face, I walk down the lane with a happy refrain, just sing, sing.
And if you knew me, you knew that's easy for me to do. But what I loved about Rick is he would ask questions that I was afraid to ask. And I would try and help him with the answers. You know, I don't like to ask questions because I'm afraid of the answers. You know, like why do some people get taken so early? Why do people suffer? Does it matter? To me, it did. And I just had to share that, you know, with Rick, my wife and I, we became friends with him, my daughters too. He came into our home. And like I said in these videos, I knew he struggled a lot with things, but the best part about it was he never gave up. And even though, you know, I miss him a lot in these days, I get a lot of comfort in knowing that he is finally at peace because he struggled so hard with that. And I know that it's been told to me many times, because I've lost a lot of people, as many people have this last couple of years, is that grief is love without any place to put it.
Hi, my name's Rick. I was Rick's last captain that he worked for. Rick was a pretty fun guy, to put it mildly, but the guy could show through a tantrum if the Dodgers weren't winning. I know the day room where the TV was, and I know the Dodger game was on because the entire day we're being reminded they're starting at this time. Yeah. And he gets so irritated when the Dodgers weren't doing good, he'd stand up and pace the floor. And there's not that much room to pace while you're sitting in the day room there watching the Dodgers get their butts handed to them. But he would throw a tantrum and he would do his thing. But the worst tantrum would be if he got a call and he'd have to leave. And then it was all over. But I love the guy. Anyway. If I'd get there in the morning, I'd look at the roster, and I'd see he was on it, and I felt better because he was that good. You know, as firemen, we all like to think that we're good, we're great, we train, we do our jobs, but you're never that good, and Rick knew that. He knew there was always something better and always something more that he could do to improve himself, and he worked to that end, and he encouraged everybody around him with his smart-ass remarks, with his motivation, with just his energy, and he was just such a treat to be there with you. You couldn't give him a task that you didn't see a look of confusion in him, you didn't see fear, you didn't see whatever. The guy was just smooth as ice. And when you'd go to a fire or go to whatever incident it was, no matter how devastating, throw as much blood, guts, mayhem, whatever you want into it, and he's just walking through it and processing stuff. He probably dealt with it later like the rest of us do, but the guy was good. He was really good, such a treat. Such a treat to have around. I respected his devotion to his family. That was it was remarkable. A lot of guys, they devote their lives to their family, but Rick worked hard, it seemed, from where I was standing, to put in that effort for his girls and his family. So it was truly a wonderful thing to see a man dedicate himself to the job of being a dad. As men in here, we know it's not an easy job being a parent. It's definitely not an easy job being a father. But to do it right, it's a never-ending process of working on it every second of every day, and Rick knew that. So, anyway, that's it. Excuse me for.
A lot of us in the room can't appreciate the day-to-day working relationship that a lot of the gentlemen in this room have had with him, and it's just so enriching to see the tribute to the person. The guy I quoted before, Covey, said, we live on this earth to live, laugh, and leave a legacy. Live, laugh, and leave a legacy. Check, check, check. Anyone else before we conclude?
I was fortunate enough to know Rick for the last 4 years, and I've never met a more loving, caring, generous, funny, and patriotic man. He had a way of coming into a room and making everyone feel like they were his best friend and he was their best friend, and he was definitely mine. So next time you hear a country song or you see an American flag waving in the wind, think of Rick, and we'll all meet him again. Hopefully not soon, but one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you. Anyone else? On behalf of Kathy and Rick, Tracy and Scott and the extended family, what a wonderful afternoon. What a fantastic tribute. I'll close with this prayer. In your hands, O Lord, we humbly entrust our dear Rick Eaggleston Jr. In this life, you embraced him with your tender love. Deliver him now from every evil and bid him eternal rest. Welcome him into paradise, where there will be no sorrow, no weeping or pain, but fullness of peace and joy with your Son and the Holy Spirit forever and ever. Amen. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you being here.
Dave, maybe get an all LACD picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Jace, is there a way to this? People are going to trip on this bad boy. I think. Is there a way to move this? Here, I'll unplug this. No. He's so on the first.
That's what it is. No, we used to be on the link prior to or after. You could be the one in the cart that's like squat.
Yeah, this is Rick's house, and he's in the back, and so we ended up drinking beers in the back. But it was like a crazy experience.
And it was one of the girls' birthday parties.
I thought you brought beer to girls' birthday parties. You know, like,
Single young guy. Well, we do. I mean,
Nice to see you again. And thanks for having us. Appreciate it.